there's a lot of small things people could pick on, but I think the ultimate barrier to growth in football in Asia is sponsorship. I think if you get sponsorship dollars, you get the business community behind football in Asia, that's where ultimately it comes from. It starts with a sponsor gives a certain amount of money which will enable a club to administer itself more professionally, to afford a better quality of staff, whether it's playing staff or whether it's commercial staff. Once you have those sponsorship dollars in and they get behind it, they can afford to buy better players, pay them a little bit more money, then the quality of the league improves, the value of the league therefore improves, TV rights go higher, more money into the club. I think really that is ultimately the start of it. I mean, football we've seen all over the world has become incredibly commercial and professional, and there's only two things that clubs ultimately spend money on, and that's players and players' wages. And without sponsorship dollars to help give it that kickstart, that get the media values rolling in, I think that is the key critical thing that really holds back, not just in Asia but anywhere in the world. I think it's going to achieve knowledge transfer. So you're going to have the European football industry coming to Asia. Yes, they want to know how to do business in Asia. They want to know how to connect with the right people, how to build market share, how to grow a fan base, etc. But on the other side of the coin, they actually want to impart knowledge onto their Asian counterparts. So football clubs and sports clubs in general in Asia will have an opportunity to listen to 120-year-old football clubs talking about how they commercialise the game, how they maximise the use of their stadium, how they engage with sponsors, how they engage with the community, how they deal with concessions and maximise things like match day revenues. So all that kind of knowledge that European clubs have been doing for the last 100 years, they'll be able to kind of download to their Asian counterpart, which I think will be a major factor in Soccer X. I think the other side of it is that Asian clubs, there probably is, in this day and age, the value of players is going off the scales. There are not really, when you consider the size of Asia, there are not many Asian players playing in the top European leagues, and I think that it will give Asian clubs an opportunity to showcase their talent and say, look, we actually do have an academy scheme, we do look to develop young players, get knowledge transfer again on the playing side, and understand how better to nurture and develop talent, and also create the catalyst, if you like, for links between European clubs and Asian clubs, where they can be sending good young players over for development and training, and in return hopefully European clubs may well send out academy players or reserve team players that could possibly come out and play in Asia and uplift the standard. We have an ongoing relationship right now with Tottenham Hotspur. We've just concluded a coaching camp where we had a number of coaches from their academy come over to Singapore. There was a commercial component to that course where kids could pay and go along and be coached by Premier League coaches. But more than that, what they did was they spent quite a lot of time with the FAS here. They coached the Youth Olympic team. They did a lot of development with some underprivileged kids that they ran courses with the FAS. So there was quite a big sort of philanthropic component to it. And Tottenham are going to be doing something ongoing with the Youth Olympic team. And out of that, incidentally, came the FAS have asked us to look at taking the Youth Olympic team on tour this year to help further prepare them for the Youth Olympic Games in August. So that's one relationship which we have, which is ongoing. We are talking to a number of clubs about touring Asia this year. Spanish and Italian clubs, not English, because the season doesn't allow for English clubs to come out because there's a very short window between the World Cup and the start of the domestic season. The Spanish and Italians, however, we can. We're talking to a couple of very high pedigree clubs about coming out to Asia, so watch this space. I think Australia will do best out of all the Asian teams personally, because I think just as a nation they're fantastic athletes. They've got an awful lot of good players that are playing in the European leagues. like anything, it's a question of how they come together on the day as a team. But I think physically and technically, Australia have probably got the best chance of going the furthest amongst Asian teams. Korea, obviously they had a fantastic World Cup when they hosted it. We're a few kicks away from getting to the semi-final. Again, on their day, I think they can give anybody a good match. I just would be a bit concerned about them physically. And really, I think that's true of Japan and North Korea as well. But I think the lovely thing about it is that I think kids kids follow great players. So when kids watch the World Cup, yes, you want your own team to do, so a young Korean boy will want his side to do well, but they'll still get motivated, inspired by watching great players play. We are trying to, we're in detailed discussions with a couple of, again, pedigree clubs in Europe that we don't want to be short-term partners for them. We don't want to bring a team out for a 1 week or 2 week tour and then say goodbye for a year. We're looking to work with 1 or 2 clubs on a strategic basis, really to advise them on growing their brand and growing their commercial activities in Asia. And we don't think you can do that in an ad hoc way. We think it has to be a kind of formal relationship. So we are looking at establishing, throughout the course of this year, at least 2 principal relationships with real top pedigree European clubs where we will be their partners in Asia, for growth in Asia. Apart from that, SoccerX is obviously a massive one for us. It's the next 8 years, effectively, that we will be dealing with that. So I think the growth and expansion of SoccerX in Asia is something that's going to be a major activity for us. And we'll be working with SoccerX to look at other types of event that we can have in Asia, because SoccerX is primarily B2B, but there's, I think, room for a nice consumer event, football consumer event in Asia, that we're looking to develop with SoccerX at the moment. The first thing I'd say about the World Cup bid is that we're going to be working with one of the bid cities or bid countries this year. We've been approached by somebody and we're likely to be working with them as kind of ambassadors within the region. But from the Asian bids, say Asian, I mean anywhere under the jurisdiction of the AFC, which obviously counts Qatar. I think you're really talking Qatar, Indonesia, and Australia. I think Indonesia, I think it's been a very bold move from them. I don't think realistically they are ready, but I think what it does do is make a statement of intent. And hopefully what it will do is galvanise Southeast Asia to maybe consider a joint bid. I think the only issue with that is who becomes the host nation and who therefore automatically qualifies. But I think that any one country in Southeast Asia would struggle right now with stadium and infrastructure to hold. But I think that combined, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam could be a very interesting proposal in the future. Therefore, I think Australia have got to be taken incredibly seriously because they've held an Olympic Games, which was a huge success. They are de facto a massive sporting nation, and whatever they do well, and I think that they've got a great chance.